Hello everyone, thank you so much for having us here today in your management meeting to talk about a really important topic that was investigated. Today we're here to talk about the big turnover problem that was seen in our company. 6 data analysts worked on this project to find out where the issue comes from. So we have myself, I'm the product owner who is mainly in contact with you. Also we have 2 data analysts, Linda and Ashkan, who worked in our data. And we have 3 visualization specialists, Vad, Ole and Robin, who worked on this project with me. So let's get into it. First, I brought a project overview so you can follow our project plan and our project timeline better, and you can understand and link our individual steps to the overall project plan.
So what is our status quo? Currently, there are 290 people employed at Ventura Gear, with most of them being in the manufacturing unit. For our analysis, we created a turnover dashboard, which the management team can also later on use to track job satisfaction or dissatisfaction across the company, and also to see if there are increasing turnover rates. We can see here that turnover increased over the past years, with most of the employees leaving after the first year. If we take a closer look at it, we can see that 25 people leave from the manufacturing unit, but total numbers can be misleading, which is why we take a look at the ratios. And there we see that the serious issue of declining employees is in the inventory management unit, which is also underscored by the people who are currently in the company, as inventory management has comparatively the lowest satisfaction.
Okay, here we have a question. What other factors influence the job satisfaction? For answering this question, we use the machine learning technique. And as you can see, the result shows that payment frequency plays an important role in defining the variance of job satisfaction. It gives us a hypothesis for further analysis that maybe extrinsic motivators play a part in employees' job satisfaction.
Now we go into various parts of it. We first looked at the job tenure, the employee tenure, in relation to the average job satisfaction. And there we can see that for each year we have different spikes. It's changing constantly. And this could be the reason that the pay rate is changing. And therefore we also looked at the pay frequency, also suggested by the machine learning. We have the pay frequency, which is monthly for 1 and bi-weekly for 2. And we have the average of job satisfaction, and we can see that the average of job satisfaction is rising. We looked at the pay frequency, and therefore we also want to look at the pay rate, if that has an increase on the job satisfaction. So we first put the employees into 3 salary categories, the mid into quartiles. Therefore we came up with 3 graphs for job satisfaction in relation to pay rate. It's important to say not to compare them, but just to look at them each by their own, because the scaling is different. But what you can see, in each of these salary groups, there's an increase of job satisfaction in relation to pay rate. And especially for the majority group, for the 50% quartile, we have a high job satisfaction increase with a high pay rate.
So looking at satisfaction and how it's mainly influenced by extrinsic motivators, we now analyze performance measures to see if they're also focused on extrinsic and quantitative variables. Currently, the only performance metric being measured is keyboard presses per hour. While this is a measurable indicator, it doesn't capture the full picture of employee performance or engagement. So the graph here illustrates that there is no clear relationship between keyboard presses per hour and job satisfaction. However, higher keyboard activity does not necessarily translate to higher performance, which raises concerns about employees' productivity as well as employees feeling seen and valued more. For example, employees can have less keyboard presses but still considered productive or vice versa. So effectively, to assess performance and foster a positive work environment, additional key performance indicators should be introduced.
So this was a lot of information and a lot of insights that my colleagues shared with you. So let's take a moment to get it all together, take a big breath. What did we just learn? So what we just learned was that our employees are mainly motivated by money and by the pay rate they get the money. So this is a really extrinsic motivation that we try to enforce into them. And it does not really seem like they are motivated to do their tasks just internally because they think their tasks are important. This can also be seen because when you look at the job tenure, satisfaction is not stable, but it has different little spikes. And this shows that at these spikes there was probably a payment raise that motivated them, but that didn't leave long-term results. So these extrinsic motivators we have here are really short-term and are not sustainable. That's why if we want to make our people committed and satisfied long-term, we need intrinsic motivators. Also, the performance measurements should not only be about control and, for example, keyboard presses, really quantitative, but also qualitative, as we have to value our employees and value the work they do.
So our recommendations are divided into two main categories. The first one, short-term actions, but most importantly, the long-term strategy for sustainable intrinsic motivation. Those are the recommendations we focus on the most. So we have seen that our employees value money, rate as well as frequency. So in the short run, if it's feasible, we can shift to a bi-weekly pay to increase satisfaction levels in the short run. What I think we have to look at is conducting a market analysis to stay competitive. But we have to focus on long-term strategies. One way to do that is looking at career growth for intrinsic motivation of our people. Performance indicators, goal-orientated, can be qualitative as well as quantitative. Satisfaction KPIs, we can divide the satisfaction measure that is now measured in just one figure. We can divide it into multiple segments, and we have to foster a team culture for a more intrinsic instead of extrinsic motivation. So for implementing the recommendations, we came up with a dashboard. This is for employee Max, and Max has a to-do list for today, and Max can track his own goals. It's a personalized dashboard, so for every employee in the company, they can track different goals, and that's to see their performance and see how their work matters. They also have weekly updates to connect with the company, and there are some company measurements as well. Personal goals as well as company goals are measured in this dashboard.
So after now analyzing the turnover issue and implementing recommendations that make people feel more committed to our organization and more satisfied, we can reduce the turnover. A big problem was how our company uses data. We were given one big table with all the information we have about a person. This is a big concern regarding secure storage of data and also regarding who has access to data. Data should be stored differently and only be able to be accessed by people who have to know about this. For example, personal information like an address should not be given out to us, but only stored with the HR department and only be accessible by them. Even more important, passwords should not be stored in a normal HR folder, but should only be accessible by the IT or by the employee themselves. And this is important because of data protection law, but also just because of security reasons. Next, if we look into what we deliver today, it's really important to not break it down on two small segments, because we are only talking about 290 people. If we're going down towards two little teams or two little sections, the patterns that we see there can identify single employees. And this is not okay, because if we do a research like this, we have to secure anonymity of the people that are affected by it. Next, it's also important an analysis like this we did today, it's important to see it in the context. The numbers can only tell us this much, but then we have to put it into context. For example, we saw that sick leave data or sick leave hours are way more, sick leave is higher with women. Okay, we can say that is a problem in the women in our company, but actually this is just because women do more care work. And if the child at home is sick, they have to stay at home as well. So we have to consider things like that if we integrate data. We already did that today for our analysis, but to be aware, if you use different analysis or interpret our analysis differently, take it into context. Yeah, so Always combine quantitative and qualitative insights for balanced decisions. We can come to our conclusions and a call for action for what you can do now. So in the beginning, we were asked like, okay, we have a turnover problem. Can we just hire new people? Our answer to this is definitely a no. We can see hiring new people won't solve our cultural problems that we have inside of the company, so new people will just leave again. So before we hire new people, we first have to focus on increasing internal motivation for our employees. We can do this by focusing on 3 things. First of all, we have to increase employees' sense of belonging. They have to feel valued and connected to our company. Next, they have to feel valued in their competencies. They have to feel competent in what they are doing, so therefore we need career paths. And also, they need to feel like their competencies are valued. Last but not least, they need ownership. That's why it's not okay to take too much control over someone else's work, because they need to feel like they have ownership over their own work and their own workspace. If we consider those 3 aspects, our company culture will improve. Last but not least, we have to decrease the dependency on extrinsic motivational actions and performance measurements, and we have to increase and monitor performance through various KPIs that also measure ownership, competency, and belonging, and leave space for those 3 things. If we do that, we don't have a hiring problem anymore, and we will hopefully not have a turnover problem anymore. So let's get to action.